We spend our lives gathering, assuming that once we have enough, we will finally be secure. But the ancient texts observe that those who love silver are never satisfied with it. The more we increase our abundance, the more the coins seem to vanish, leaving the labor itself feeling empty. This drive to hoard often leads to a deep isolation. A person might labor alone, with no family or community to share the results, yet they never feel they can stop. Their eyes see the riches, but their mind never feels they have reached the end of the work. There is a measurable gap between the growth of a person's assets and the quality of their internal life. As the line for wealth climbs, the line for satisfaction heads in the opposite direction. This happens because financial assets are fleeting. Riches eventually take flight like an eagle toward heaven, disappearing regardless of how tightly we try to hold on. We tend to view numbers on a screen or a physical currency as permanent markers of safety. We project our hopes for stability onto objects that have a much shorter lifespan than our own anxieties. Relying on our own logic tells us that more is always better, yet human wisdom often fails to account for how quickly resources can deplete. When we labor only to be rich, we are ignoring the reality of how little control we actually have. When the labor only leads to isolation and the assets themselves are prone to vanishing, the pursuit of earthly security breaks down. It leaves a person with a surplus of goods, but a deficit of peace. This surplus is more than just inefficient. It can become a snare. The desire to be rich often leads to temptations that pull a person away from their own well-being, turning a pursuit of comfort into a mechanism for ruin. The logic of hoarding seems sound on the surface. A person sees a plentiful harvest and decides to build larger storehouses, telling themselves they have enough goods laid up for many years to come. But that strategy ignores the timing of mortality. A person can spend a lifetime filling a storehouse, only to have their life required of them that very night. In an instant, the abundance they gathered becomes useless to the one who gathered it. Even if the owner remains, the assets themselves are under constant attack from the environment. On Earth, treasure is subject to moth and rust, which slowly but surely corrupt everything we try to save. Insects consume the grain, and oxidation destroys the metal. Relying on such unstable foundations creates a trap that keeps the body fed while the soul starves. History shows that extreme abundance often precedes a collapse. Ancient societies have fallen not because they lacked resources, but because their fullness of bread led to pride and a destructive idleness. In times of crisis, physical silver and gold can transform from a safety net into the very weight that prevents escape. People have been known to throw their silver into the streets, realizing it cannot deliver them from the consequences of their own choices. The constant reach for more acts as a psychological trap. Rather than shielding a person from the world's problems, the love of money often pulls them deeper into them. This reliance on wealth creates a barrier that is almost impossible to overcome. As the old saying suggests, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. This illustrates a conflict of loyalty. It is difficult to focus on a spiritual path when your attention is anchored to the relentless demands of protecting and growing your money. Financial abundance can act as a heavy weight, creating a wall that keeps the soul from reaching a state of true deliverance. We have to ask why we spend money on what isn't bread, or labor on things that provide no actual nourishment. There is an alternative to this cycle of accumulation. This alternative is the heavenly treasury. It is an investment in things that are immune to physical decay, where no moth can corrupt and no thief can break in to steal. Where you place your treasure is where your heart will be also. If your assets are tied to things that rot, your focus stays there. If placed in things that endure, your heart moves towards security. Moving between them requires a shift toward contentment. Contentment is the practice of being satisfied with what you have right now, rather than constantly looking for the next increase. With this shift, we see that the value of a life isn't measured by the abundance of things a person possesses. Life exists independently of the pile of goods we manage to collect. We are encouraged to live without covetousness and to be content with our current provisions. This lifestyle values the present moment over the future storehouse. True security is not found in the weight of a purse, but in the freedom from needing it to be full. By choosing contentment over accumulation, we invest in a treasury that never loses its value.